What's going on, guys? Bengal again here, coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking more NFL draft. I need to amp up the draft content on the channel, and once I get finished with some player evaluations for the time being, we're going to have some top 10 positional videos going out soon. So the first one to look forward to is top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL draft for 2021. I've got a very interesting list that I've compiled so far. I'm fairly happy with it, but a lot of guys are really close, but that's a video for a different time. If you have any ideas for draft content that you'd like to see, I'd be happy to consider it. Leave them down in the comments section below. But let's get into the top 50 players in the 2021 NFL draft for Daniel Jeremiah, February 23rd. Today's the 24th as I see this. I've already actually looked at this when this came out. Of course, respect Daniel Jeremiah a ton. He's my go-to for all things draft, and this is his second variation. So there are new players in his top 50. There are new movements around, and let's just go ahead and talk about it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new for more draft content. This one's not really going to be a ton of my personal opinion, just because, in all honesty, some of these players I haven't had a chance to look at just yet. Now, I've watched these players play games. I think I've seen everybody play on this top 50, but some of the guys I haven't done individual tape evaluations yet for. So it's really tough for me to just lie to you guys. I'm not going to do that. I know there's going to be other YouTubers, or especially guys on Twitter, that just tell you they think they know when they haven't really done anything. That's not going to be me. If I don't know enough to speak on something, I'm not going to. But we'll look at number one. It's Trevor Lawrence. That one is pretty obvious to me. He is the best player in the draft. So this is one that you're not going to see change likely ever. He's just a very good quarterback prospect. I think that guys want to put Zach Wilson up higher, put Trey Lance up higher, put Justin Fields up higher. But they forget that as good as Trevor Lawrence is throwing the football, he's as good, if not better, running the football. Trevor Lawrence is an outstanding athlete as well. So it's really tough to find flaws in his game. He's not perfect. He's not perfect. I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect prospect, but he's about as good as it gets. He's very talented. Number two is Ja'Marr Chase. Now, it's interesting to see him at number two for me, because for the same reason that you might have a guy like Trey Lance rated lower, because you've only seen him for 1 year, we've only really seen Ja'Marr Chase for 1 year. Now, we did see Ja'Marr Chase at the highest level of college football in the SEC, while Trey Lance was at the FCS level, and Ja'Marr Chase was really good. I am surprised to see him at number two. He's my number two receiver in the draft, but it's very close. Ja'Marr Chase is an incredible player. Play strength is off the charts for Ja'Marr Chase, and it just kind of depends on what type of player you're looking for. I don't think Ja'Marr Chase is ever going to be as much of a home run hitter as Jalen Waddle is over the top, but on a down-to-down basis, if you can get a player like DeAndre Hopkins, who I kind of feel like Ja'Marr Chase reminds me of. You guys are always looking for these play comps, and that's not necessarily my comparison, but he's someone that he does remind me of a little bit. Ja'Marr Chase is really good. It's a little surprising to see him rated at number two, but I think it's well warranted. He's a really good player. Kyle Pitts at number three. I get memed on my channel now for calling him a versatile weapon all the time, which I've stopped doing, but it's very true. He's not really a typical tight end, and as you can see here, he's rated number three on Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 big board. Kyle Pitts is really good, and it's going to be interesting to see what team he goes to. He's a dynamic playmaker, and if TJ Hawkinson could go at number 8 in the draft just a few years ago to the Detroit Lions, Kyle Pitts definitely could go top 10. I mean, he's a better player than TJ Hawkinson was coming out, because he is more dynamic for sure. Number 4 is Zach Wilson. This is my second rated quarterback in the draft. If you guys saw my video on Zach Wilson, I think very highly of him. He kind of reminds me of like an upgraded Baker Mayfield. And that seems kind of weird, but it's like some of the tight window throws, some of the zip on the balls. But Zach Wilson also has the ability to improvise in a way that Baker Mayfield doesn't, because he's a better athlete and he is effective as a runner. And he really is just an incredible player. I think in the 2018 class, with Baker Mayfield, with Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, I think Zach Wilson would have gone number 1 overall in that class. I think he would have been the best player. Wilson is a really good player, and I'm excited to see where he's going to go. I'm not going to say all my rankings, because I don't know just yet, but at quarterback, I'm pretty confident about my first 5. After that, the order is a little bit tougher to discern, because you can start to get some guys with some bigger issues. But Zach Wilson's very, very good. Caleb Farley at number 5, another player not moving. Top 5 stays exactly the same. Farley's another guy who we haven't seen a whole ton of. He opted out in 2020, but when he played in 2019, Caleb Farley was very, very good. He'd be a really fun eval video to do a separate video just on Caleb Farley. Really, really big fan of him. He is the best athlete at cornerback as far as some of these technically solid guys go. He's a better athlete than Surtain. That pushes him up, in my opinion, because, I mean, Surtain's pretty technically good as well, especially a press man corner. But Farley can do that, and he has a really good feel for zone despite not being a corner for all that long. Farley's really, really good. Jalen Waddle is moving up. Of course, I've been on the Jalen Waddle train as long as anybody. It was pretty impossible not to see his talent as a freshman at Alabama, and was excellent last year as well. Only saw him for a few games this year before injury, but Jalen Waddle isn't just your typical speed guy. He's someone who's a very polished route runner and was so in 2019 and started to dominate in 2020. His catch radius is super, super wide, and as a Giants fan, I obviously want him to last to number 11. I'm just starting to get worried it's not going to happen. Waddle is a really, really amazing player, and he moves up 2 spots this week in Daniel Jeremiah's updated top 50. Number 7 is Rashawn Slater. He's down 1 spot. They say undersized. Here's the thing, though. When he measured, he wasn't really that undersized. Like, the arm length was a fraction of an inch smaller than what you'd kind of look for. The height is about there. I think he's 6'4", 6'5". Like, he's not really that small. Like, you're talking 6'4", a little small for a tackle, but 6'5", it's not really that small. He's very technically refined. Of course, you go back, I always point to him shutting down Chase Young, who was an unbelievable prospect. Rashawn Slater definitely has the chops, didn't play this year, but his tape is very, very good. I still do not mind him being ranked ahead of Penei Sewell. Number 8 is Devontae Smith. Yeah, Devontae Smith won the Heisman. Really, really good player. But I've been on the Jalen Waddle train is better for a long time. I think Devontae Smith is the 3rd best receiver in this draft. It's a very strong receiver class, but I think Devontae Smith is rated fairly here. Size is going to be a problem for him with, being so skinny, if you will, because you point to durability concerns and play strength. But his play strength is better than you'd expect for someone of his frame. Penei Sewell is number 9. Here's the thing. Penei Sewell is a super freak athlete at the position. And if you can coach him up, you have an all-pro potential, Hall of Fame potential tackle, because he's just got unfounded athleticism. However, if you cannot coach him up, if he doesn't take to the technique, you're going to be looking at another Greg Robinson, potentially. Because Sewell is a little bit raw right now. He's a little bit raw, but you look at a guy like Tristan Wirfs, who's a crazy great athlete, who got coached up fundamentally and had an all-pro type year for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And that's kind of the player I see Penei Sewell potentially turning into in the right situation, is an all-pro type player because of that freak athleticism. He's just way bigger, faster, stronger than a lot of the guys he's going to be lined up against. And for a tackle, that's pretty incredible. Number 10 is Micah Parsons. This is my toughest player to kind of evaluate in the draft. Micah Parsons is really, really tough for me because I don't think he's as good. I don't want to say he's not as good as everyone's saying, right? But he's not as good playing off the ball to be an off-the-ball linebacker all the time. I think his best fit is probably playing the strong side, maybe in a 4-3, maybe in an attacking 3-4 where he can really not just play one position, but maybe even be like an overhang defender, slide inside, rush the passer on occasion. But I don't think he's good enough on a down-to-down basis to be your Mike linebacker. Definitely not. I don't think he's good in coverage enough to do that on the majority of his reps, but he's also not as good of a pass rusher as you'd like to see for someone that's going to rush the passer all the time. So what position does Micah Parsons play? It becomes a little bit tougher to decide because you look at Isaiah Simmons and you kind of have the same issue where he is kind of maybe jack of all trades, master of none type player, great athlete, but I think as a linebacker, he lacks instincts to do that, to play off the ball. And I don't think he's as good of a pass rusher enough to be a dominant player. I think he has sky-high potential, again, because of that athleticism, but he's a very tough player for me to project. I'm gonna have to go back and watch him even more, because there are some things you love, like his ability to shoot certain gaps that no one else is even coming close to getting to, and then you see him get redirected constantly, kind of have no idea where the ball is going, have no idea how to fill passing lanes, and I go, what are we really dealing with here? It's a really tough eval. Number 11 is Trey Lance. Love Trey Lance. He is a really, really good player. He's coming in at number 11 for Daniel Jeremiah. I think he could definitely be a top 10 player in the class, and probably will end up being a top 10 guy in my top. I don't even know how many I'm going to rank on my big board this year. I'd like to do 150. But Trey Lance, I think, is going to be a top 10 player. He's very, very good. The 1 year playing in the FCS is really his knock on him, because you only seen him for 1 year, and you've seen him against not that great competition. And I don't value competition as much for the quarterback, because at the same time you're looking for decisiveness, you're looking for, can they go through progressions, are they accurate, do they get the ball out on time and on target? And Trey Lance does those things. The only difference that playing against better competition would do is it makes those reads a little bit tougher, because the coverage is better, and it makes those throws potentially a little bit tougher. But when you're evaluating the throw, if it's on time and on target, it doesn't matter if it's a catch or not, right? If he throws it wildly inaccurate, where it could be an interception trailing behind the receiver makes an adjustment, makes a catch, you go, that's not that great of a throw. You're evaluating the throw. It doesn't matter about the coverage. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Probably didn't explain that as well as I would have liked to. Justin Fields at number 12. Fields is a really, really good player as well. Quarterback is a super, super tough position to grade this year, because you could sell me on Justin Fields maybe being quarterback 2 for some guys. I wouldn't say that's insane. I wouldn't say that Trey Lance at QB4 is insane, or Zach Wilson at QB4. I have my personal feelings about these players, but at the end of the day, they are quite close, and coaching is going to be the big difference maker in how good these guys are at the next level. Situation is going to be key, and coaching, which is the most important thing in the NFL, that's going to be really, really big, especially at the quarterback position. So what team these guys go to will matter a lot, and Fields is a really, really good player. I hear the NFL knock on him is that he wasn't asked too much to go past his first read and second read too often. So when I watched Justin Fields, I didn't really see it to be too much of an issue, because he's decisive with the football, but you don't know if the system is, or Justin Fields not being able to go through a ton of different progressions. You don't know if that's the system or the player. You don't know if they have implemented that because of Justin Fields' limitations, or because that's just the system. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Justin Fields plays at the next level, but top 12, I think, certainly makes sense. Here's one that I'm not a huge fan of, is Gregory Rousseau at number 13, because it seems like we have one of these guys every single year where they have amazing size, they have amazing athletic traits, and Rousseau, for me, is the guy that has all those things. Maybe not an unbelievable athlete, but we just don't see it there as a pass rusher. He's not fundamentally sound at all as a rusher. He has almost no plan of attack, no pass rush plan at all. And for me, Rousseau's going to have to get coached up a lot. Now, that could happen, but right now, I do not see him near the top 15 in terms of this draft. I don't think he's the best edge rusher in this class. In 2-3 years, Rousseau could end up being a monster. But right now, he's extremely raw, and you're going to need some time, and you're going to need to see him get coached up, and you're going to need to see him get more experience. Another guy who hasn't been playing edge for all that long. So when you talk about pass rush plan, well, maybe he doesn't have a pass rush plan because he's unfamiliar with the position still. So he's another one that's going to be really, really interesting to see how well he progresses in the NFL. But for right now, I couldn't have him near top 13. And I hope this is just not one of those guys that Daniel Jeremiah is super high on, the way a lot of guys are high on these frames, and then we see, another edge rusher that doesn't work out, because you need to be more than just big and long to be an effective pass rusher in the NFL. Number 14 is Patrick Surtain. Moving up to number 14 from 15 last time around. The one real big knock on Surtain is his speed. He doesn't have elite speed, but it's solid. I mean, he's technically sound. You like him playing press man, and that plays in the NFL. It's the same reason Jeff Okudah went at number 3 last year. He was really, really good at playing press man coverage. Surtain can do it. Caleb Farley can do it. Surtain's a very, very solid player. It's going to be interesting to see what his role is in the NFL. Daniel Jeremiah is comparing him to Marlon Humphrey, who ends up being one of the best slot corners in the NFL. And I wonder if Surtain is going to end up doing that same type of thing. It's going to end up being interesting to see what his role is in the NFL. Elijah Vera Tucker at number 15, guard, tackle, flexibility. He's been very solid at both positions. I see him more as a guard, so I'm actually very happy to see him listed at guard here instead of tackle the way we've seen in some mock drafts and some, I think, just mock drafts. Where else have we seen it? Not sure, but Vera Tucker, really solid player, and the highest rated guard so far, depending on how you feel about Rashawn Slater or even Penei Sewell playing guard at the next level. But Vera Tucker is definitely very solid. And top 15, maybe seems a little high, but I mean, middle of the first round, safe player. So I think that kind of makes a lot of sense. Trayvon Merrick, first safety. Seeing him at number 16. Can play over the top. Has shown the ability to tackle in the box. Merrick's a really, really fun player to watch. He was so good 2 years ago at TCU. He was very, very good last year at TCU. Trayvon Merrick is really, really solid. And as someone that has versatility to play both safety positions, teams are going to value that. But at the end of the day, he is a safety. It's not an incredibly valuable position in the NFL anymore. You rarely see safeties get drafted very high anymore. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Like, over-the-top guys are pretty hard to find. And he has that ability to play over the top. There's going to be a player outside of the top 50 that we'll talk about, Richie Grant. I think Richie Grant might be the best safety in the class. And he might not even be a safety. He might be an overhang. He might be a nickel, right? He might be true safety. Maybe even move to outside corner, depending on the team. Richie Grant has unbelievable versatility. And while I view him as a safety / nickel, he showed the ability at the Senior Bowl that he can play on the boundary and can stick one-on-one with some of these different receivers. So Richie Grant is extremely appealing to me. And to see Trayvon Merrick so high at 16 and Richie Grant not inside the top 50 is surprising to me. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at 17. This is a very, very interesting one. JOK is almost more of a safety than a linebacker. Apparently played at just over 210 pounds last year. And you're not going to see any Mike linebacker playing at that weight. It's just not going to happen. You're getting bodied by interior offensive linemen regularly. I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah doesn't even have to be penciled in as a weak side linebacker. I think his best fit is probably as an overhang guy, which is playing almost that hybrid nickel role. He's an interesting one because he plays big, but is he your guy that you just plug in there, say, hey, take away this elite tight end this week? Do you come back next week and say, hey, rush the passer off the edge occasionally? Drop back into coverage. Play over the middle. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is one of these typical chess piece players. I know, like, there's only one piece in chess that apparently can move all over the place. I think it's like the queen. I'm not a chess guy, but I know I hear this chess piece used all the time, and then like the chess people in the comments are like, well, I hope you mean the queen or whatever. I don't know anything about chess, all right? But Owusu-Koramoah is a versatile guy that can play a lot of different positions, so seeing him in the top 20 makes sense to me. Travis Etienne at 18. I think he's the second best running back in the class. You hear him talked about in the wide zone scheme, can be very, very good in that role. Etienne is very, very fast. He's a home run hitter at running back. And while I value what Najee Harris brings to the table a little bit more, which is consistency and ability to catch the ball out of the backfield in today's modern NFL, seeing Etienne inside the top 20 and RB1 isn't a major surprise. I just happen to have my own opinion. I like Najee Harris a little bit better. Kwity Paye at 19. Another interesting one because edge is a super interesting position to rank so far because you see guys that have Rousseau at number 1, Kwity Paye at number 1. For me, Jalen Phillips at number 1. Even I've seen Azeez Ojulari at number 1. There are a bunch of guys that are near the top 2 discussion at edge. Kwity Paye certainly is one of them, comes in at number 2 for Daniel Jeremiah here at number 19 overall. And Paye is certainly explosive. Kwity Paye plays really, really hard. His motor is the biggest thing that I see for him. And you love to see it. You love to see high effort guys, and Kwity Paye certainly is that. Really solid run defender, but he's also shown a knack for getting after the quarterback. I like Paye a lot. I think 19 is a fine position. Jalen Phillips at 20. I love Jalen Phillips. I think he's day one, best edge rusher in the class. His big knock is injury. It's been concussions, and that is a major, major concern. Because if he has concussions frequently, you're not playing. And if you have concussions even more frequently, you're not playing ever. Your career is going to be over. See guys retire all the time because of concussions. You kind of don't even hear about it. What happened to Kobe Fleener? Concussions, career over. Jordan Reed doesn't play. Like, concussions is a big issue, especially for a defensive lineman, where you're going to be engaged with a different player every single play. So injuries are a potential big concern. But I love Jalen Phillips as a prospect. So top 20, I think, is more than fair. Or I mean, he should be at least 20, I should say. Number 21 is Cadarius Toney. Another very interesting player. Everyone's interesting to me. I love the draft. I love prospects. I love scouting. So everyone's interesting in their own way to me. Cadarius Toney probably going to end up being a slot hybrid type player where you just get him the football. You remember, and this is just because they both went to Florida, so I'm just going to draw the natural comparison. Percy Harvin, even though Kadarius Toney doesn't have the speed that Percy Harvin had, just find a way to get him the football. And not that Percy Harvin can stay healthy. Another guy with concussions, man. Like, just we're talking about Jalen Phillips. Percy Harvin could have had an amazing career, but just with Percy Harvin of Florida, get the ball in the hands of Kadarius Toney and watch magic happen. He's a very solid route runner. He's raw as a receiver. I know he didn't have any drops playing last year at Florida, but he looked very unnatural catching the football at the Senior Bowl. So for me, it's try to coach him up as a receiver. The route running's there. Just set him on the jugs machine and hope for the best. Kadarius Toney, really solid player. Love to watch him play. Najee Harris at 22. Talked about him a little bit already. I love Najee. So I think 22 is a pretty good spot. J.C. Horn moving up 2 spots to number 23. J.C. Horn's really solid as well. Another press man guy, but a little grabby, a little handsy, but is extremely physical. I think the hands are something you can coach up and say, hey, don't grab as much. I think he's a really good player. Love the tenacity of J.C. Horn. Zaven Collins at 24, another player I like a ton. Tough player to rank as well, but I think he, unlike a guy like Micah Parsons, is very good off the ball. He can play coverage with anybody. He's one of the best covered linebackers in the draft, but I think he also has the size and the strength to come off the edge if you want to play him there. This is a strong side linebacker. I think probably the best one in the draft. Micah Parsons, again, is a tough grade because I don't know where I even see him playing. But Zaven Collins is a true strong side linebacker, a guy that can blitz at a very, very high level. He's 6'4", about 260. He's massive. Moves a lot faster than you think he would and is very, very good in zone coverage. I love Zaven Collins. He is very, very fun. Jalen Mayfield at 25. He is just a power run tackle. Solid player. 25 seems fine to me. Christian Darrisaw at 26. I like a little bit better than Jalen Mayfield, but he's moving up. Mayfield's moving down. We'll have to see how this goes in the next coming weeks, months before the draft. I have not seen Joe Tryon. I've watched Washington play, as we'll get to Levi Onwuzurike as well. I have not seen these guys play on tape. I've only seen Washington play. And Levi Onwuzurike, he's got a 28 moving down 5 spots. Tryon moving up 5 spots. And it's going to be interesting to eval these players. I have not seen them individually, so it's going to be interesting. If he isn't bendy, I find it a little bit strange why teams are apparently so high on him, because that's kind of what you look for off the edge. And yeah, maybe the effort is exceptional, but I'm interested to check him out, and Levi Onwuzurike as well, as maybe one of the better pass rushing interior defensive linemen in the draft. I like Davion Nixon quite a lot, so Levi Onwuzurike is going to be interesting. Nick Bolton, kind of like a classic Mike linebacker, hits hard, runs sideline to sideline. You don't really see it in coverage with him, but Bolton is a solid player. 29 feels fair to me. Tevin Jenkins, apparently going to profile as a right tackle at the next level, which he would be the highest rated right tackle, because Mayfield could end up playing blindside despite playing right tackle. But Tevin Jenkins, I think he's probably going to be a true right tackle. Greg Newsome moving up 9 spots. This is a very interesting one. Had a great season last year at Northwestern and is moving up quite a bit. 9 spots from number 40. He's in a first-round range right now. And cornerbacks are always going to be at high demand, especially with all these great receivers coming into the NFL all the time. You need guys that can cover those guys. And we're going to see probably at least 4 or 5 corners go round 1, if not more. And we know that Surtain's going to go round 1. We know that Farley's going to go round 1. J.C. Horn's probably going to go round 1. But who are the other guys that are going to get in there? It's going to be Greg Newsome, maybe. Maybe it's Eric Stokes, who moved down quite a bit, by the way. Maybe it's Aaron Robinson from UCF. You know, there are a bunch of guys that could throw their hat into the ring. Newsome is moving up a ton. Javonte Williams up to 32. He's in first-round range as well. Another guy that's really fun to watch because he's so big and so powerful as a running back. He and Michael Carter were awesome last year at UNC. And Javonte Williams continues to rise. Jason Owe at 33. Like, this is another guy who I've not watched individually, but I've seen Penn State play, and Owe is never a guy that really stood out to me too much when I watched Penn State, and maybe it just didn't happen to happen. But when I go back and watch him, I'm going to be excited to see how good he is or bad. Teams are just seemingly raving about his athleticism, but we're going to have to see how fundamentally solid he is. Mac Jones is 34. Teams seem to love him as a leader and as a worker, which is going to boost his stock. He's accurate, and he's a solid quarterback. We've seen guys worse than Mac Jones go a lot higher than Mac Jones is projected in the draft. Daniel Jones went at number 6. Probably a worse prospect than Mac Jones. The only thing you really had with Daniel Jones better than Mac is athleticism. And Mac Jones doesn't really seem like too much of a crazy athlete. Seems about average in terms of athleticism at quarterback. But it seems like if you want a leader and a hard worker at quarterback that's going to understand and perform decently well to your system, Mac Jones could be the guy. Really would not be shocked to see him go round 1. Really would not be shocked to see him go top 15. Number 35 is a new entry. Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. Have seen him a little bit. Wow, fun player. Sideline to sideline range. Great athlete. Very, very good in coverage as well. Jamin Davis is a playmaker at linebacker. Also pretty big. He's 6'4", I think 234. So he is a little bit lanky, but really instinctive, really, really smart. And I think if you're looking for a linebacker, whether it's the potential Mike or strong side, I think Jamin Davis is your guy. He's a really, really fun player to watch. And it's just tough to find great cover linebackers. And Jamin Davis is someone that can do that and do that well. Tutu Atwell moving down a lot. I don't like to come in and hate on anybody, but I just don't see it with him as a top player in the draft. I know he's a fast guy, and I have watched him. He's fast. He has no catch radius. It has to be on him for him to catch it. Seems like decent hands, but the catch radius is super, super small. He's never really going out of his frame to catch the football. It's going to be incomplete. He is so fast, though. But he is deep speed. He doesn't really have a complex route tree. I don't think he's an amazing route runner. I think his change of direction is pretty good with the football in his hands. He's going to be a guy that you scheme open and get the football in his hands. I don't think he's a guy that can do it consistently, at least not right now. He's a player I'm worried about. I think he's the guy that people think Jalen Waddle is, if they don't like Jalen Waddle. So I'm not super high on Cadarius Atwell. Landon Dickerson moving up 7 at number 37. Solid center. He was amazing at Alabama. Teammates love him. I mean, what more do you want as center than a team leader and a solid piece? Just stick up the middle. Landon Dickerson makes sense. Tore his ACL, though, so he's going to drop maybe lower than he should. Ronnie Perkins up to number 38. Ronnie Perkins is an interesting one because I have seen a lot of his games being a Big 12 guy, watching Texas every game they've played. And Ronnie Perkins is a solid player. Another high motor guy. Really, really, really good run stuffer. So Ronnie Perkins is a guy that you can plug in, immediately going to be a starter in the NFL just because of what he does against the run. And then you coach him up as a pass rusher. That effort's probably going to end up translating to some degree. So Ronnie Perkins inside the top 50 makes sense to me, even if I don't have him rated that high. I think Joseph Osai in the Big 12 is just a better player. But Ronnie Perkins at 38. Azeez Ojulari, 39. This is a better pass rusher and probably isn't as good against the run as Ronnie Perkins. I can say that very confidently, although he's not really that bad for what is going to be a 3-4 outside linebacker probably. Ojulari doesn't move that well in space, so he might just be a rotational guy just straight out the gate. So that is going to be interesting to see what team takes him and how well he performs. Terrace Marshall moving down 4 to number 40. I think this is probably a good range for him, but seeing him ranked above a guy that I'm really, really high on in Rashad Bateman, I just don't see Terrace Marshall as being better. He's got good size, great athleticism and speed, and I think he's a solid deep threat. But I think Rashad Bateman is a better every down player. But Terrace Marshall comes in number 40. Christian Barmore at 41. IDL is a tough position. Interior defensive line is a tough position to scout this year. Christian Barmore is certainly very solid. You're playing the potential game here because Barmore day one is really not the best defensive lineman in the class from what we've seen. DJ is saying he turned it up a bunch down the stretch end of the season, but I haven't really seen it from Barmore. He was disappointing this year. Another player I'm going to have to watch, and especially it seems like his last couple games near the college football playoff and in the college football playoff, because he's got sky-high potential. He's got size and athleticism for days, about 6'5", 300+, great athlete. Another guy that you're banking on the potential of him rather than the player right now. Kelvin Joseph into the top 50. Not surprised to see this at all. This was a name from everyone I was seeing on Twitter the past week or so, just moving up draft boards a lot, as it seems like guys were getting to watch in Kentucky. Now, I haven't watched him individually, even though I did see Jamin Davis. I was watching at linebacker. Haven't gotten a cornerback just yet for Kelvin Joseph, but today's modern NFL loves guys that are tall, with great length, can attack the football, and are athletes. Kelvin Joseph certainly seems to be that from what I've read so far. So I'm not surprised to see him move up. Another guy that's going to be interesting for me to watch. Gibraltar Cox certainly should have been in the top 50. Another great cover linebacker. He's a really, really good player. It's tough to find. I think he's going to be a Mike at the next level, playing middle linebacker. And he can chase and tackle, and he's really, really good in coverage. Love Gibraltar Cox a lot. Dylan Radunz at 44. He was just locked down. Trey Lance had no problems at all because that offensive line was so good. Radunz was a massive reason why. He just doesn't really allow pressure. So, and a lot of that is because Trey Lance is getting the football out quickly and running if he needs to, but Radunz seems to be locked down. Really, really good tackle. Davion Nixon moving down 10. Big 10 Defensive Player of the Year. Crazy athlete. He's going to be a 3 tech in the next level. He is a solid pass rusher, and that is tough to find on the interior. That's extremely valuable. I'm always going to rate interior pass rushers who can actually disrupt the pass higher than nose tackles who are just better against the run. Nixon's a 3 tech. He's going to get after the QB. He's going to play in those gaps. He's not going to be playing over the center as the 0 technique playing the nose or even the 1. He's going to be outside more lined up against the guard, and I think he's got speed and power to beat those guys. Plays with some really, really good finesse too. Rashad Bateman finally into the top 50 at 46. I love Rashad Bateman. He is a very, very good route runner. He's got very good hands. Now, against press man, that's where you're going to see his struggles a little bit because he doesn't really create a ton of separation in those spots, but he's got play strength. Now, he's not as good overall as Jamar Chase. He's like Jamar Chase light in terms of size, strength, speed, separation. But I think Rashad Bateman's a very easy top 25 player in the class. No question about it. So I'm happy to see him finally get inside the top 50. But for me, Rashad Bateman should be a lot higher. Liam Eichenberg at 47. Yeah, Eichenberg's solid player. Notre Dame always is producing good offensive linemen. Eichenberg just seems to be another one in a long line of solid offensive linemen. Aaron Robinson at 48, moving down 9. I'll tell you what, he had a lot of hype going into the Senior Bowl. It was very good there. I just think he was the second best UCF defensive back at the Senior Bowl. I think Richie Grant is overall a better player. Aaron Robinson is another guy, kind of reminds me of J.C. Horn in some ways. He is physical at the line of scrimmage. I think he has nickel flexibility, and he plays really, really aggressively, and you love to see that. I like Aaron Robinson. Pat Freiermuth, moving down 11 to rank number 49. I think it's probably only a matter of time before he falls out of the first round. He's just a solid tight end. I can see him being very successful at the next level, but at the end of the day for me, Pat Freiermuth just isn't dynamic enough. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be naturally comparing him to Kyle Pitts because of the same draft class. And you see Kyle Pitts and what he can do, and Freiermuth just falls so flat in comparison as anyone would. Freiermuth is a good player, but probably going to fall out of the top 50 before long. And then Elijah Moore moving down 7. Another slot receiver in a really, really strong slot receiver class. He's solid. He really is. I'm just not sure that he is worth taking in the first round like I've seen him in some mocks when you have just such great comparable players down the board. Patrick Jones moving out of the top 50. Here's my thing. If you're going to move Patrick Jones out, you got to move Rousseau down the board because they're both high potential guys. Patrick Jones is a freak athlete on the edge that's really, really explosive that just isn't technically all the way there yet. I would have Patrick Jones in my top 50 very easily. And I'd have Rousseau in my top 50 very easily, but I wouldn't have those guys like top 15. Like I don't think Rousseau's a top 15 player. I think it's not really consistent with Jones there, being outside the top 50. Marlon Tuipulotu out of USC. Heard a lot about him. Another guy that I have not watched. James Hudson, another guy I have not watched, but I've heard good things about him. And there, Eric Stokes moving out. I like Eric Stokes. I think Eric Stokes is really, really good. So to see him not only at 47, but out of the top 50 completely hurts to see because I think Stokes is a very solid player. And then Dayo Odeyingbo out of Vandy is moving outside of the top 50 as well. So that is the new updated top 50 from Daniel Jeremiah. It's very interesting to see where he has guys ranked and for what reason. Highly recommend you guys go check out this article. Follow Daniel Jeremiah on Twitter. But that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.
I hit it at the park, bend bones. See me high step to the end zone. My life like a game, Nintendo. Playing with the best, let them know. Get off the track, the train's coming through. Yeah. Promise you get in my way, then you best believe I'ma just run over you. Yeah, yeah. Pump and turn, taking it back to the house. Defense a joke, I'm laughing so loud. Speed burst good.